The Atlantic Ocean in 1942 was a graveyard of merchant ships, a vast expanse of gray water where the only law was the wolf pack. For Elias, a merchant mariner on a slow-moving freighter bound for Liverpool, the war was a series of long, terrifying nights spent listening to the hull. Elias was a watchmaker by trade, a man who understood the language of gears, springs, and precision. In his bunk, he kept his tools, tiny screwdrivers and tweezers, and a collection of broken watches the other sailors had given him to fix. "Why do you bother, Elias?" the first mate asked, watching him work by the light of a swaying lantern. "If a torpedo hits us, those watches won't tell you how much time you have left." Elias didn't look up from the delicate hairspring he was adjusting. "In a world where everything is being blown to bits," he said softly, "it's good to have one thing that ticks exactly the way it's supposed to." One Tuesday, at 3 a.m., the world tilted. A dull, heavy thud vibrated through the ship, followed by the agonizing scream of twisting metal. The U-boat had found them. The order to abandon ship came over the chaos of steam and shouting. Elias grabbed his life jacket, and almost by instinct, his small wooden box of tools and a watch he had just finished repairing. A silver pocket watch belonging to a young stoker named Billy. The freighter sank in 12 minutes. Elias found himself in a wooden lifeboat with 6 other men, bobbing on the black, freezing swells of the North Atlantic. They had no engine, a torn sail, and a compass that had been smashed in the scramble. The fog rolled in thick as wool, hiding the stars and the horizon. "We're lost," Billy whispered, his face white with shock. "We don't know which way is east. We're just drifting toward nowhere." The men sat in a silence that felt like a weight. Without a heading, they were dead men waiting for the cold to take them. Elias opened his wooden box. He took out the silver pocket watch. He knew that the watch moved at a constant rate, and he knew exactly what time it had been when the sun had set. He looked at the watch, then at the faint, hazy glow of the sun trying to break through the morning fog. He began to calculate. He used the watch not to tell the time, but as a makeshift sextant. He measured the angle of the light against the steady rhythm of the gears. "Row," Elias said, pointing into the gray void. "That way. If we keep this heading, we'll hit the shipping lanes by dawn tomorrow." "How do you know?" the mate asked. "Because the gears don't lie," Elias replied. "The world is in chaos, but the math is still the same." They rowed for 24 hours. Their hands bled, and their lungs burned from the salt air. Just as the last of their strength was fading, a silhouette appeared through the mist, a British destroyer on patrol. When they were pulled onto the deck of the warship, Elias was still clutching the silver watch. It was still ticking, a tiny rhythmic heartbeat against the vast roar of the ocean. He handed it back to Billy. "It's 5 minutes fast," Elias said with a tired smile. "I'll need to adjust it when we get to shore." Elias never went back to sea. He opened a small shop in London, where he spent the rest of his days fixing the timepieces of a world trying to rebuild itself. He knew that while the great powers fought with steel and fire, the world was actually held together by small things, by gears, by precision, and by the steady, quiet courage of men who refused to let the clock stop.